Hello everybody and welcome back to our Fast Fact series. I'm Ted, your host, and for this Fast Fact we're going to look at the Parthians. Now the Parthians are a very interesting group in history. They were a part of a large grouping of nomadic Iranian-speaking peoples who lived in Central Asia. And they really lived on the, and this grouping of Iranian-speaking peoples, they lived in Central Asia and on the borders of what we would call Eastern Europe. They appear in history, the Parthians. Had client kings of the Seleucid kings, who were and these Seleucid kings were the great heirs, of course, of the Argead Empire in Asia. They're the great heirs of the Argead Empire's Asian territories. Now, the Parthians were to rise initially due to the severe defeats that the Seleucids suffered at the hands of the Romans. In 190 BCE, the Seleucid king Antiochus III was decisively defeated by the Romans at the Battle of Magnesia. Now, the defeat and the subsequent treaty forced on the Seleucids was a mortal wound for their empire. The Seleucids emerged from that war as a second-rate power in the Near East, and their once great empire that at its height stretched from the Aegean to the Hindu Kush was reduced to basically nothing more than Syria. Now the Parthians, they would go on to replace the Seleucids in the eastern portions of their empire. In 148, the Parthian king Mithridates I, he defeated the Seleucid king Demetrius II in battle, taking him captives. Now, Mithridates I eventually released Demetrius II, but he only did so to create instability within the Seleucid kingdom in 129 BCE. Now, Mithridates I, he cements Parthian control in Persia and sets the Parthians up to become the great power, or a great power, I should say, in the Near East. Mithridates I's successors nearly lost the advantage he provided to them due to the careers of Mithridates VI of Pontus and his son-in-law Tigranes the Great of Armenia. Those two privately decided to divide the remnants of the Seleucid kingdom between themselves. Was Mithridates VI of Pontus. He would also go on to later clash with the Romans. And Tigranes, he would go on to control those very rich provinces of Mesopotamia. Now, Tigranes eventually assumed the title King of Kings. And as we have discussed in our lecture series and in our Fast Facts, the title King of Kings was, it was an ancient title that had been carried by a succession of kings. It was very weighted. It was a very weighted social status attached to it in the Iranian tradition, because it was used by the Achaemenid kings of Persia, the great kings. But it predates the great kings in usage. That title and that style traced itself back to the imperial titles and styles used by Sargon the Great, or Sargon of Akkad. And that'll wrap it up for our quick fast fact on the Parthians. Sorry, got a bit lost there. That'll wrap up our quick fast fact on the Parthians. Iranian-speaking peoples came to rule over the Near East, came to set themselves up at the great imperial power of one of the great imperial powers of the Near East, tracing a legacy all the way back to the Achaemenid kings, and from the Achaemenid kings all the way back to Sargon of Akkad. Hit like, subscribe, and comment. Let me talk about the Fast Fact. And as always, I'm Ted, and I will see you guys next time for another Fast Fact.